Hello and welcome to Taribiospeaks, the Life Series podcast where we handle contemporary issues and, of course, we tell stories of those who have come out of several struggles. But today, we are not telling a story. We are talking about issues that affect not just us, but the climate and the society. My name is Taribio Wilson Owefawari, and today I have as a guest the Executive Director of Safe Earth Foundation. He is also the Secretary and Coordinator of the West Africa Sea Turtle Conservation Network. Please join me in welcoming to this podcast, Reynolds Ebiegberi. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you here. I've been seeing so many videos and pictures on Facebook where you are in the water, especially the Atlantic Ocean. So we'd like to hear a bit of what you do when it comes to Save the Earth Foundation and, of course, the West Africa Sea Turtle Conservation. What does it entail?
Well, thank you for having me. As the Executive Secretary of the Safe Earth Foundation.
Okay.
From the name, you'll know that it's established to scale up and inspire people to save the earth.
Okay.
And in this process, we try to look at climate change, which affects basically the Niger Delta. We look at wildlife, that is biodiversity, that is already, most of them at the verge of extinction.
Okay.
And we are looking at also the aspect of livelihood, because people have to survive in the midst of everything. So Safe Earth Foundation is looking at all of those areas to see we have a bottom-up approach in solving our own problems. And the West Africa Sea Turtle Conservation Network is a network of sea turtle actors spanning from Nigeria to Mauritania. So we have the different actors working with different boundary partners.
So all the coastlines from Nigeria to Mauritania.
The Gulf of Guinea. We're looking at the Gulf of Guinea in general.
So in the course of this work, what have you noticed?
Yeah, so the work made us look like a landlord travel and see. You travel to each country you go to. I
know it was actually a difficult task pinning you down for this
First of all,
podcast.
In Nigeria, where I work in Akassa, Akassa has the highest, the longest coastline in the entire Nigeria.
Okay.
And its position is unique because in the entire Nigeria, that is the last place you go to.
Okay, for those who do not know, Akassa is in Bayelsa State, Brass local government area of Bayelsa State in Nigeria.
Yes.
All right.
The southernmost tip of Nigeria.
Okay.
Where the Atlantic Ocean, where the North River meets the Atlantic Ocean.
All right.
That's where we are. So it's a very unique place. And it has a very rich biodiversity, to call it the key biodiversity area.
Okay. That
if you want to carry out research in anything that concerns nature, related to what we call wetlands, you can get it in that area.
And Bayelsa is a wetland?
Bayelsa itself is a wetland state.
Okay.
And in fact, the entire Bayelsa is classified as a key biodiversity area.
Really?
Because of the unique area we are in. So the experience we've had over time is that recently there is a drift from our normal life because of demands, because of population, because of nature, from erosion, which is rise in sea level. We are seeing it from flood, the perennial flood we are seeing in Egua and the neighboring areas, which mostly are man-made and sometimes is natural. We are looking at the issues of deforestation in our areas and the irregular climates we are having. Sometimes you see rainbow fall, but the weather is very hot.
Yes.
Sometimes the sun is shining, but you will think something is happening. So a lot of things are happening. And then the issue of people leaving their places because of climate change. Erosion is washing away coastlines. And as a matter of fact, in the next maybe 30 years, we are forecasting that maybe half of the Niger Delta states will be wiped off.
Can you repeat that again?
In
the next 30 years?
In the next 30 years. Talking at 2050.
Okay.
There is a forecast that half of the Niger Delta states will be washed off by erosion. Why is that so?
Erosion or oceanification?
Both erosion and ocean surge.
Yes.
Now these things will now happen And you are seeing it in Brass local governments.
Yes.
In my area, every day we are taking records and communities are going. As we speak, 3 communities are no more. They've been wiped off. If you go to Odioma, the problem is there.
Yes.
If you go to Tuan Brass, the problem is there. Going to Kolama, going to...
Even Okpoma recently.
Yeah, even Okpoma recently, yes.
Yes.
All of those things are happening. So if there are no mitigation approach, which Safehead Foundation is trying to advocate to address, looking at mitigation, looking at adaptation and coping strategy, which needs also government's attention. So when we travel, we document those things, and like the question he asked, those are the things we are saying.
Okay. So in other words, men have not been kind to their environment, because some of these things are caused by deforestation and other harmful practices that men have been involved in. And then some are natural because we can't help it. But then I want to look at the conservation aspect. We've talked about the harm that the environment is currently undergoing and what climate change is, how climate change is affecting our lifestyle and of course the habitats. Now let's look at your conservation. Recently, my people in Okpoma, a whale washed offshore or onshore. How do you say it? It washed offshore.
Offshore.
It washed offshore, and they started butchering it for meat. So you are into conservation. What do you have to say? The whale, is it an endangered species also?
Yeah, so the whale basically should have been one of the highest tourism potentials for Nigeria.
Okay.
And it is classified not because it's purely for tourism, but purely the fact that these things are going extinct. Today we talk about the extinction of dinosaurs. We only hear it on papers, but we no longer see them. Some are even saying that, oh, it doesn't exist. We watch them in those alien movies and see all of that, but it existed once. And in our own generation, we need to protect the ones that we've seen.
Okay.
So that we need to pass those information to our children for them to see. And it has a lot of ecological benefits. Now, for the whales that Okpoma enjoyed,
my people.
Yes, what they enjoy is, Nigeria is a member of a lot of international regulations and conventions. We have the Convention on Migratory Species, which Bayelsa helped Nigeria to be a member through our sea turtle data. We have Convention on Biodiversity. Okay. And we have CITES, Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. Okay. All of these ones, Bayelsa is a member. I mean, sorry, Nigeria.
Nigeria, by virtue of Bayelsa being a part of Nigeria.
Yes, it's a member. And then, so now we have a whale in Okpoma. The first action would have been informing the government and other conservation organizations. Because in all of these conventions, made it so clear that non-governmental organizations and government will have to work together with the communities to ensure that these things are protected. But I would say that maybe lack of awareness, or should I say ignorance, or maybe if I want to use a bad word, negligence, the people saw it and they saw it as meat. And before now, these things, we are serving them as delicacies. Yeah,
when I was growing up, Will used to wash offshore in Odioma. Yeah. So my mom maternally is from Odioma, so she will usually, once in a while, when we were teenagers, we'll just see one meat like that has one very funny smell whenever it's being roasted. And I have tasted whale as a child. Okay. But now you are telling us that's wrong.
Yeah, so I am not telling you that was wrong. Government said it is wrong.
Okay.
because we have made the research and we found out that these things are not much. And we need to conserve them because their population is declining. It's not just whales. There are some sharks and rays that you don't need to eat because many of them have gone extinct.
And most of them are in...
Yes, and some of them, like the dolphins that we are seeing. You know, dolphins have saved a lot of lives in the ocean. Maybe your boat capsized, you and me that is from the Niger Delta area. a riverine area. Now, eventually, if your boat capsizes, dolphins are also safe. They will carry you to the sea, to the coastline and drop you so that you're safe. Now, our people target that kind of lifesaver. So the international body working with the local bodies try to see that these things are conserved. So they place them according to priority of their threats.
Okay.
We have the sea turtles, we have the dolphins, we have the sharks and rays, we have the whales. All of these things are now put into what we call IUCN Red List. IUCN means International Convention for the Conservation of Nature. Okay. This is an international body that classifies an endangered species. They can look at the various species and say, okay, this one, after taking data from the various areas, we can now put them, okay, this one is not much. So they classify them according to that. So Okmama people eating it has a very big challenge to the international government when it comes to the international community, because they will say that in Nigeria you are part of these things, but your people are eating this thing.
I've seen cases where sea turtle, people also took sea turtle. I think sharks too. Some of these ones have washed offshore. So what are the penalties involved? And then there's one you mentioned before we started recording. What's the name of that animal again?
Pangolin.
Pangolin. That one is also in the wetlands here.
Yeah.
What are the penalties involved if people do not release them back to their habitat and instead begin to turn them to food?
Okay, first and foremost, you look at sea turtle. Sea turtle, we have 7 species of sea turtle. And out of the 7, we are seeing 5 in our coastline. And they lay their eggs on the coast, not inside the water.
Yes.
And if the sea turtle hatched, the children will still come back to that same place to reproduce. So they don't go to other beach. And people saw sea turtle as one of the delicacy. Some of them target the carapace of the sea turtle. The pangolin, for example, they also target the scale of pangolin. And they tend to take the scale, like the eyelash, like the fingernails women are using, have been produced many times.
Excuse me?
Have been produced from some of them from this fashion industries.
Okay.
They get them to produce them. Okay, to get them to produce them. So you see the demand.
So you're saying I'm wearing a pangolin?
I don't know the one you're wearing, but you see that these things, because the industry is big, the entertainment industry is big, and the demand is high. Everybody is competing. So they need more of these things, and most of these things are being produced in China.
Okay.
So you see a lot of them being transported to China, and the immigration is in charge to do the arrest. Now, if you are arrested, that is where I'm talking about. Okay. Nigeria have, apart from the convention I've mentioned, Nigeria have an Endangered Species Act.
Okay.
Now, the Endangered Species Act, first, it was in 1972 that convention was, should I say, was enacted.
That's globally or in Nigeria?
In Nigeria, it's a national.
In 1972?
In 1972.
As far back as 1972?
Yes, we had it in 1972. Then, fast forward to 2016. The National Assembly saw it like many of the penalties were not too strong enough.
Okay.
So it will give room, like you get arrested and they will fine you for 5,000. So someone said, this meat is sweet. He said, I can just eat it and give them 5,000. And Buhari said, no, please review that. Former President Buhari looked at it and said, okay, review it. So when they review it, they put more tougher penalties. Like if you are caught with pangolin,
okay,
for example, with the scales of pangolin, you'll be arrested and prosecuted. And your prosecution shouldn't go beyond 24 hours. Yes. And depending on the size and motive of why you are carrying those scales, you have to have at least 5 years in prison.
5 years.
And then, or depending on the offense, maybe you could be a middleman, or you could be somebody who is directly doing the business. Depending on that, you might have.
Depending on your involvement.
Yes, you might have 1 million naira fine.
Okay.
And then you have 5 years
in prison.
Now, all of these things I just mentioned, including the sea turtle, okay, all of them are found in what we call Schedule 1. Now, Schedule 1, why are they in Schedule 1? Schedule 1, it means that these animals are now vulnerable.
Oh.
Are now vulnerable. So if we begin to kill them, in no distance time, they will go extinct.
So the whale, what's the fine for whale?
Every whale, if the whale is classified under Schedule 1,
it's 5 years.
It's 5.
5
But
years
the problem is that in whales, the problem with whales and other like dolphins is that Nigeria risk delisting.
Okay.
The international community can blacklist Nigeria from all of this. It means that, globally they form fundings for all of these things.
Okay.
Maybe those funding could come from United Nations. It could come from
so they stand the risk of losing funding when they are delisted.
Not just even risking, they silence the country from all of those things. So it's as though, despite you have all of these plenty biodiversities,
you're not recognized. You're not recognized.
Yeah.
So when you see people see the whale and then they make videos of it while they are butchering it, they are actually harming the country.
They are harming the country, yes.
Wow.
They are harming the country. Like in Bayelsa, let me come to Bayelsa. I like to focus on my own state. Like in Bayelsa, if we conserve these things, if we prioritize conservation of endangered species, we can make millions of euros and dollars from just conserving, because the international body
from donor agencies.
Yes, because they are looking out for, recently we have what we call Terra Global and RAID, who wants to partner with Bayelsa State for 5 years to protect the Dunamon forest. We have 500 million naira, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from the Conservation General, who just visited the state to make all these places national parks. Now you can imagine how many persons they want to employ, how many investments that will be coming to the state, how many involvements, you can just imagine.
There's a ripple effect. Yes, a ripple effect.
The state
if you conserve this marine endangered species, there is a ripple effect of benefits. Positive benefits. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, the next time you see certain animals in the wildlife area, and especially in our marine habitats, before you think of turning them to your food, consider our environment, consider our listing in international community and organizations, and also consider the fact that younger generations to come might not see these animals and sea life just because you decided to eat them. And please, to my people who love eating whales, sharks, and sea turtles, and those who have decided to turn pangolins to beauty products and all that, please, will appeal to you to reconsider. So thank you so much for being here with us. I know that we might have to have you back here to discuss some of these things, because we need to push out this message to ensure that we do not make your job more difficult. If more people are aware of the dangers involved in poaching wild animals and sea life, I believe the conservation will be easier for you. So we would like to have you here again in the future, whenever you are stateside and not onshore, to ensure that we push out this message of conservation. When you talked about the sea turtle and how people target the children because of what do they call the back of the sea turtle?
They target them for food.
They target them for food.
But industry don't look at the carapace.
The carapace.
Yeah.
Okay, so please, we'll have to have you here, and we'll do our part in disseminating the information and make sure that people come on board this conservation drive. You're not alone. So until the next edition, I'm Taribio Wilson, away for our and this is Taribio Speaks, the Life Series podcast. Bye-bye.